Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and everybody here is on the same page. We're all in California today. Very excited for another show of Life's Essential Ingredients, and we got a great one for you. Incredible story, and I'm getting goosebumps already just thinking about her story, but then also getting goosebumps because we got 3 USFers here. So I just want to say good morning to our guest, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Good morning to you. Pasho, good morning. I'll let you two say good morning to each other.
Good morning, everybody. So great to be here. I love that. I don't know if you can see our screenshots on the back of the Golden Gate Bridge. So yes, bringing back the USF vibe for sure.
Good morning. It's like we're all back in the city doing the show. I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Joyce, I do have a special treat before we get into the show. Mike was telling me off air that he has been practicing for weeks. Pasho, I'm so excited, and everybody out there is just hyped. He wanted to sing the USF fight song for everybody. Pashito, get down, baby. Let's go. See, all right, he's got himself muted intentionally.
Oh, you guys didn't hear that? I can't do it twice. Oh man, it was just. I'm gonna be honest. It was pitch perfect. Right, that one right there. It was perfect.
Dang it. All right, so let's get into the show. Pacho, that was pretty good. That was pretty good because I just threw him under the bus right there. He tried getting me, Dr. Joyce, on the last show, throw me under the bus. I had to get him back a little bit. But Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn, welcome to Life's Essential Ingredients. And let me tell the listeners a little bit about you. She is the founder and originator of MetaHab, and we're going to get into that a whole bunch. Where you can find Dr. Joyce, her website is www.drjmf.com. Again, www.drjmf.com. Instagram is @dr.jmf, and email is jmf@metahab, metahab.com. About the guest. Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn received her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of San Francisco. She has her Nurse Practitioner from University of California, Davis, and her Master's of Science in Nursing from Sacramento State University, publishing her thesis on a phenomenological investigation of near-death event survivors. I messed that up. She completed her Doctor of Education with a dissertation entitled Transforming Life Crisis, Stories of Metahabilitation After Catastrophic Life Events. Unfortunately, from St. Mary's. Nothing against the Gales, but they were in our league, and Pasho and I really didn't care for them that much, but we won't hold that against you. She is a marathoner, I'm struggling today, and triathlete. In 1990, she survived a sudden death event requiring 22 minutes of CPR to return to life, and we are going to explore that in great detail. Already a nurse practitioner and dismayed at the focus of her recovery and what was presented in the aftermath of her trauma, her mind emphasized the negative, painting a bleak future. However, her master's and doctoral research focused on post-traumatic growth, and she created a strength-based clinical pathway guiding survivors toward a productive recovery and post-traumatic growth. Her first book was Turning Tragedy into Triumph, Metahabilitation, a Contemporary Model of Rehabilitation, which profiled survivors and detailed a pathway toward post-traumatic growth. Her work and research continuing involving how trauma affects families and communities and recognizing how they experience post-traumatic growth. A professor currently at Sac State, she speaks nationally and internationally on trauma, focusing on resilience and post-traumatic growth. With multiple publications, her work and research continue to provide strength and hope for those who suffer in the aftermath of trauma. Her second book, Anatomy of a Survivor, Building Resilience, Grit, and Growth After Trauma, just released April 27th. Dr. Joyce, welcome to the show.
Well, that's a great introduction. And I don't want you to feel bad, but I actually, two of our children, one graduated from St. Mary's and one from Santa Clara. I know.
I think the show, Marshall, I think the show's over. I think we got to go.
Although I can't really say anything.
Anyway.
My best friend.
So that's a great introduction. So thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I feel very honored. I love it when I got your email and you were saying you're from USF. I went, oh my gosh, this is so great. So yeah, very fond memories of my college time and time in San Francisco. So it was a while ago, but it was cool. So
yeah, we're going to explore that a little bit as the show moves forward here, because it was definitely good times for Mike and I. And I think it's nice to think back a little bit to see how we've arrived where we are. But I do want to start with a thought of the day. And this is an interesting one. I've been 100% on these, and as far as having them hit home. But this one, I don't feel all that confident in it, but I think it's going to make sense after researching you. I think it's going to make sense to you and your passion. But let's see. So it's by Florence Nightingale.
Oh.
And to be in charge is certainly not only to carry out the proper measures yourself, but to see that everyone else does so too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that thought of the day?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you bringing up Florence Nightingale. She was the founder of what we know as modern nursing, and she was a brilliant scientist who, like myself, was uncomfortable with the way people were being taken care of. And so she got in there and started studying things and became very aware of what it takes to put people in a place where healing can occur. And one of the things that you mentioned here, you said something about take charge. It is extremely, when you're talking about essential ingredients, two essential ingredients I always like to tell people is taking control and making choice. And she was very into, first of all, that has to start with you. And I've talked a lot about that in the presence of our COVID situation, where I've talked to parents and therapists and clinicians and everybody. First and foremost, you must understand and take care of yourself. And then you have that gift and you model that behavior to others. So that's a beautiful, beautiful theme. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I'm a big fan of Florence Nightingale. She was brilliant.
Well, I knew you would love Florence. So, I mean, that was a no-brainer. But yeah, no, after hearing you, I'm glad that spoke to you. And it just, the reason why I picked that is your life happened until it didn't. It stopped, and then you were able to heal and realize that, you know what, you need to take charge of things, because the direction that you were getting was not the direction in which you wanted to go. And then the cool thing, and why I'm so excited for this show and getting goosebumps again, you realize that this is bigger than me. And if I've gone through this, there's millions of people worldwide that are experiencing something similar and not being led down this pathway. And I love how you use that word towards healing and seeing what life has to offer. And so to me, that's what that quote, when I picked that one, that's what it was speaking to you. And I thank you for having the courage to share your life and to make it your life's work, and all the research and everything that you've done, and to continue your education and to be in the top. I know there's over 3 million nurses. I know it's the most trusted profession, but I know there's not many of us, myself excluded, that have earned that doctorate degree. And so thank you for continuing to push our profession forward and sharing your greatness. So with that, I want us to take a little bit of a step backward. And what was life like for you growing up, and how did you become and arrive at USF?
That's such a great, I love it when people talk about backgrounds, because I always, when I work with people, I always ask them, tell me your life history, because so much of what you are taking forward came from how you grew up. And I grew up for the most part in Santa Rosa, and attended St. Eugene's grade school, and then Ursuline High School, girls' high school. And I think for me, when I look back on how I absorbed information and thought through things, I really do look back on the way my parents would speak with us and making us think about things. And I don't want to use the word analyze, but like work through things. We understood, or I understood at a very young age, that, you need to take control of your life. And that when bad things happen, those are not endpoints. Those are beginning points. And so I got so much support from my parents. And I think, as anybody else in those, I was in the 50s and 60s, and that your parents were always there, but they really took on a role of supportive role, not making everything perfect for you, but helping you work through things. I also think going to Catholic school, especially a girls' Catholic high school, it was really, we took philosophy and theology, and that helped me start to think through things. In fact, when I was in high school, that's the first time I ever read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I have taken that through my high school years, all the way through my master's work and my doctoral work. And I've used his work throughout that. And so, I think that, and I, grew up in a family of 6. You took on roles, you did what you needed to do. Life was not perfect, but I think the thing that was perfect was I understood that, my parents really empowered us. Like, we cannot take care of this for you, but you got this. So when I was getting ready to go to college, one of the things that we would do on every Sunday, we had a Volkswagen van. My parents would load all 6 of us up in that van, and my dad would say, you're not only going to learn how to live together and eat together, you're going to learn how to have fun together. Get in the car. So we would go off on these road trips. And we would have these wonderful road trips around. And when we would go different places, a lot of times we would stop at college campuses. And I remember going to San Francisco, and we went to USF. And I stood on that campus, and I don't know what it was, but I stood there. I just said, I think it was a sophomore or junior in high school. And I just said, this is where I'm going to college. This is where I'm going to college. I don't know what hit me, but it did. And so when when I graduated from high school, I came from a family of 6. My parents didn't have money to do that. And they just said, we don't have money to do that, but we know you can figure this one out. And it was the only school I applied to the School of Nursing, and I got in. And I remember the first thing I got a loan to go. I got a small scholarship, but a loan. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I can't, it's all upset. And a very good friend of my parents said to me, take the loan, get in school, work really hard, and reapply for a scholarship your following year. And if you do well, sometimes some people dropped out, they didn't take their money or whatever. So I learned at that very young age, when people who care about you tell you to do something, you listen and you take their advice. And I have used that throughout my life. And that's one of my essential ingredients for life in terms of after trauma. So I did, and sure enough, I got a full scholarship sophomore, junior, senior year through USF. I worked part-time to pay for my living, my board and, all that. But yeah, so I got through college in 4 years, and So USF's a Jesuit college, right? So you go there and you don't, in my time, it was in the 70s too. You don't go to college to make money. You go to college because to be of service. So I joined VISTA, which is Volunteers in Service to America. And I went up to Yakima, Washington, and I worked on a migrant seasonal farm worker clinic as a public health nurse. And I thought I would join the other public health nurses. I was the public health nurse. So I had a huge learning curve we took that in college, but still to be the only one. So I learned a lot, but it was there at that clinic that I first saw a nurse practitioner. And I was like, wow, what is that? How do you get to do that? And I was just fascinated by that level of practice. And so when I finished my time through VISTA, which is Volunteers in Service to America, when I finished that time, I found out about a program at UC Davis as a nurse practitioner program. So I moved from Yakima, Washington to Sacramento, and then worked at a hospital here and got into UC Davis. And I've been a nurse practitioner since 1981. And I actually think I was I always want to look this up, second or third graduating class from UC Davis. So that role was very, very new, but I've loved that role as an NP. So, yeah.
Man, a lot to unpack. Yeah. Darren, I love, I didn't know that you were one of 6. I'm one of 8.
I think I read in when I looked at your website, I read about that. Yeah.
We had a lot of similarities, grew up going to Catholic school and just blessed to have parents kind of give us some guidance. And I don't want to get us off topic, but I just feel like we really need to get back to that somehow. I just don't know how I think the world is moving so fast, and the financial demands are pretty strict, where both mom and dad now have to work multiple jobs, and just from my opinion, I just feel like we're not in our kids' life enough. And I know everybody wants to, and I wish there was a way to change that. If I get to put you on the spot, if you had a magic wand and were able to give children the parental influence that you had, what idea would you have to make that happen?
Well, I think, you're right about, the financial wherewithal and all of that. But I think one of the things that we have learned to do as human beings is to adapt and adjust. And so you adapt and adjust, this is what I always say after my initial research, my master's research, and especially after my doctorate, I always say to people, if I could give parents one piece of advice, this is the one piece of advice I would give them. And that is, don't make your child's life perfect. Don't try and do that. You handicap them. We are born, we have we think we need to go find ourselves and have all of this stuff. It's here. It's already within us. We have amazing systems, spiritual, emotional, cardiovascular, respiratory, GI. We have all the immune systems. We have all these systems that are there, but they only work if we engage them. So with your children, if you're trying to make life perfect, you're not allowing them to engage the systems so that they can tweak them and start to work well. And, we used to say we had, helicopter parents where they kind of monitor everything. And now I tell my students we have snow blowing parents or whatever parents that just try, lawnmower parents. They just try and mow down anything in front of their children to make their life, difficult. And I say, as a parent, Your role is to not make their life perfect. Your role is to guide them through when they go through different things, and to help them make meaning and make sense, and to learn their own particular strength. And unless we have these challenges that come upon us and we meaningfully engage with them, we will never experience that growth. So as an example, I give all the time is, you can sit around and you can want to have strong biceps. And you can go, I want strong biceps. I really think about it. Should do that. I want to do that, but it's never going to happen until you start doing some exercises, until you engage in the process. And then the strength that is already there comes through. So for parents, again, yes, you have to do a protective kind of thing, obviously, because when your children are grown, you have to protect them. But your role is as a guide, a consultant, and a way to help them say, how are you going to get through this? What do you want to do with this? It's like with my students. My students will come up to me and say, well, this happened. What should I do? And I always say, I don't know. What should you do? Then they will go, here's what you're going to do. I want you to go think about this, and I want you to come back to me with 3 ideas. And then we'll talk about those ideas, because the other thing is, we go through, even people who have gone through trauma. I have gone through what I've gone through, and I have had this experience, other people, and there are definitely similarities in terms of the process, but there are also some unique aspects. And so when people want to know what to do, I will say, you tell me first, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. I go, well, I can't do anything with, I don't know. Go back and think about it. So for parents, I now have 3 children. Now they're grown, 6 grandchildren. And I always laugh about, you see your parenting influence and interaction changing over time. And as you move through, if you do this right, you move back more and put control and choice into their life till they get to the point where they're older. And I just say, I'm just a consultant. And I'm not even on retainer. I'm like case by case. So if they call and they will say, hey, I want to, and go, okay, before we start, do you want me just to listen? Do you want me to offer an opinion? Or do you want me to give you advice? I just want you to listen. Okay, that's what I'll do. So I think the thing that is saddest for me is, you have that bell-shaped curve and you have children on one end that get nothing. And that's a problem. Then you get children on that other end that get everything. And that's a problem. Because they will never know their capacity for growth and over time greatness.
Yeah.
Somebody took that away from them.
Yeah, I love that's just such a good visual that you just painted on that bell curve, and your words of learn their own particular strength, and then to engage in that. And I think that's upon you, Mike, myself, and every other person who is blessed to walk this earth, to try and create that space for people to live in. And that's what we're trying to do as a nonprofit, to create and have people come to the table and to see each other, to sit at the table, to set the table and celebrate the table. But it takes all of us.
I just want to, before you go on, I love that concept of creating that space. And one of the things that challenges, adversities, and traumas do is create that space. Sometimes we choose that space, and sometimes that space is chosen for us. But once that is there, then our ability to respond to that is there. But that, whenever you go through, listen, celebrate all the good things that happen. That's super important. But that space that you talked about, that is brought about by challenges, adversities, whatever, that's an important learning space.
Yes, I agree. And I used to tell my students all the time, I said, bathe in it. bathe in it for a little bit and
Yep.
learn to appreciate that kind of darkness that you feel of being in that space, and don't run from it, because that's when the great things are getting ready to happen. And so many times we get there, we're like, ouch, I want to jump out of that space. And so learning to just sit there, and I'm sure we're going to get into that in part of your stages of helping people have this dramatic growth. But yeah, no, I love what you're sharing, but I want to get into some other things. I'm going to get into your amazing book and things that you can do to help our listeners. But I think it's important for them to kind of know who you are. And researching, I know you were very active and loved to run and swim and bike. And tell us about kind of maybe after graduating how you got into it, because I know you ran marathons and were a triathlete and doing things like that. That's amazing.
Well, the first time I actually started, I dabbled in, I was an athlete in grade school and high school. I swam but when I was actually at USF, there was a professor. He was a Jesuit priest. He's a young guy. And in his class, he would take us on runs, and we would go from USF to the beach. So we'd run the avenues down to the beach and back. And that's the first time I ever started running, and I liked it. But as I got older, I started smoking cigarettes, and, I didn't really get into that much activity. And once I was married, obviously, and was pregnant for the first time, obviously I had to stop smoking and that. And our first two children were just a year apart. So I was not in the best shape after I gave birth to our second child. And I just said, I got to do something about this. So I would go out and I'd walk. I'd start walking. One day I was walking pretty fast, and I thought, I wonder if I could run again. So I started running. And then I just got back into it. I just loved it. And so a friend of ours ran marathons. And I said to him, this is a few months after I got back into running, I said, I've always wanted to run one of those marathons, but I don't know. I'm a mom, I have two kids. I don't know. If you want to run one, I'll show you how to run one. I'll train you. So I said, okay. Again, somebody that cares about. So I went in, and I ran my first marathon, to San Francisco Marathon. First marathon ever, San Francisco Marathon. And I told my husband, I only want to run one, because I just want to see what it's like. I only want to run one. So I finished that one, and he goes, okay, now are you finished? I go, I think I could actually do better. So I think I could tweak my training and my eating. And so then he just knew. And so I kept running. And actually, when I was pregnant with our third child, I ran up until the day before he was born. I was playing soccer and ran, and best pregnancy, best delivery, best everything. And right after he was born, I started running again. And it's my mental health. It's my thinking time. It's my praying time. It's a mental health time. So, yeah.
I got a question. I'm not a runner, never have been. And for basketball USF, we used to have to go on a 5-mile run like once or twice a week. And there's always that point where you just want to give up. Now, I can't even begin to imagine a marathon, how anyone finishes that. But what gets you through that point? What makes you just keep going when I'm sure there's a point where you just want to stop?
Oh yeah, I think that's in anything you do in life, that there's a time that you just go, I want to stop. But I think what keeps me going is I'm very stubborn, and I just keep thinking one foot in front of the other, and it'll get better. One foot in front of the other, it'll get better. And then there's going to be an end point, and then you're going to enjoy after you run. So I think the thing that just keeps me going. And the other thing too is, it's very important to do this with other people. I've been running for over 30 years now, probably 35 years. And I always say, I never run as far or fast on my own. It's getting, doing it in a group, working with people. Or the other thing too is, you have to think, when you're in pain, you have to think of distractors, right? So if you're running and you're in pain and you're looking at different things, you go, okay, what can I distract myself by? What can I do? So whatever you do to as a distractor helps you move through that too. And I just think at the end, you just keep thinking, look at how it's going to feel so good when this is over. This is going to feel so good when this is over. And you just, it's funny. I work with a lot of first responders, police, and I was doing some programming with them. And I was talking to a police chief in Sonoma, actually. And we were talking about, he wanted to do some wellness, mindfulness training. And I said, I'm not a first responder or police, but I don't know if they'll go for this wellness. I go, why don't we call it mental fitness training? We call it mental fitness training because you actually, I think, need to be more mentally fit than you are physically fit to get through that. And so I think that goes into the training for running a marathon or whatever. You not only learn physically how to get through that, you are practicing your mental fitness. What can I do to be mentally stronger to move through that? So.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to get into, Pasha was talking about stopping. I want to get into what happened to you. I believe it was on July 22nd, 1990. Again, want to congratulate you on your new book that came out April 27th, Anatomy of a Survivor, Building Resilience, Grit, and Growth After Trauma. Let's get into that story, because it's incredible. And I'll just stop and let you talk and share to the listeners.
Well, I actually do not remember any of it. So I kind of remember going out to dinner with some friends on Friday night. This happened on a Sunday, but from what I was told, so my husband and I have 3 children. Our son was about 22 months old. And then our daughters were 7 and 8. They were on a swim team. We were at a big swim championship meet. I'm very competitive. And in between the children's swim, they were having a fun adult relay. Well, it's not fun for me, it's competitive. So I grabbed my husband and a couple of friends and said, come on, we're going to swim this and we're going to win this. And I'm going to swim the last lap because I've been training a lot and I'm going to swim that. So apparently I did swim the last leg of the relay. I finished at the side of the pool that was 13 feet deep. And I finished, and the timer, I guess, said, "Do you need help out?" I said, "No." And this is what I've been told. I just sunk to the bottom. And somebody said to my husband, "Your wife's not coming up." And he said, "Oh, yeah, sometimes she just goes and she just jumps back up." He goes, "No, she's not jumping back up." So my husband dove to the bottom of the pool, got me to the side. They grabbed me to the pool deck. And luckily, since there were a lot of children there were a lot of parents there. And there was a couple of ER docs and a cardiac nurse specialist and whatever. And so I received CPR, 22 minutes of CPR poolside. It was at a high school in Sacramento, Jesuit High School. They landed a helicopter in the football field, put me on the helicopter, life flighted me to UC Davis. My heart went out again in the helicopter. They got it going. And that's where, the life I knew was changed forever. And so I remember I have zero memory of being on a respirator, being in ICU, being transferred, and they put me into a step down unit. And the first thing I remember was sitting up in bed, and I saw, and this is like 2 weeks after everything happened, and I saw my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law at the end of the bed, and they said, "Are you okay?" And I remember saying, "Well, where am I? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, this happened and this happened." And by that time, all the tubes were off and everything, right? And I remember pulling my gown forward because I didn't see any burn marks on my chest. I go, "No, that couldn't have happened." They said, "No, you had this event and you're better." And I said, "Oh." And they go, "Well, what do you want to eat? Do you want anything?" I said, "I'm super hungry." And my favorite meal is a cheeseburger, French fries, and vanilla shake. And so I said, yes, I want, those things that they have layers on them, like they come with a layer, like a yellow thing on it. And they come with these long things that you can put salt on, and in a cup full of white cold stuff. And you can drive through places you get. So yeah, so I could talk, but I had significant damage from my brain after that. And then actually, as I was going through all that, I remember, asking this one doctor in particular who was in charge of my case. I said, well, when will I run again? Oh, you won't ever run again. Well, when will I swim again? Well, you're never going to do that. Well, when will I go? You went. And I remember saying to him, you need to stop doing that to me. I am living what I can't do. I get it. You need to tell me what I can do. You need to ask me what I want to do. And your job is to get me there. And you don't know who you're talking to. I have been through a bunch of stuff in my life. I will get through this and And so then I turn around to go to my room, and I said, where's my room? And he goes, that's funny. She's yelling at me. She doesn't even know where her room is. But I think at the bottom line, it's just fear. I mean, you're just so afraid, like what you keep telling me, everything that's bad. And so it was, it was a tough time. And because the things that I didn't recognize my husband or children at first. I didn't recognize when I got home where anything was in my home. I didn't recognize the kitchen. I didn't recognize anything like that. I was really in pretty tough shape. So to be continually told, instead of somebody saying, well, I don't know, let's try this and then we'll do that. And so I finally did get a cardiologist who was a runner. And he said, let's start at cardiac rehab. Let's just see and get you in a place where you're all, got all the cords on you, and we can watch what's going on and start walking. And that helped. And then I did see at first I saw a speech therapist, but I was like mad at them because they would have me do things like, well, can you read this paragraph and tell us what's in there? And of course I couldn't, so I wasn't mad at myself. It was their fault. And then as time went on and I just realized I needed this help, I went back in earnest and worked with a speech therapist and an occupational therapist and, just did a lot. But a lot of it I had to just kind of figure out on my own. Nobody ever mentioned TBI, traumatic brain injury. No, that was never mentioned to me. And it was just, it was bad. And there was a point in time where I decided I really wanted to go back to work. Luckily, I had very good, colleagues at work. And they said, okay, I want you to do this or that. So I went back to UC Davis and I said to the faculty at UC Davis, can I just sit in class? Can I just sit in class again and just listen to stuff? And so I did a lot of my own rehab with that. The docs I worked with, one doctor in particular, Dan Field, he and I were very, very close friends. And he helped me start seeing patients again. But I had to tell you, it was a really dark, I still remember how scary that was to just because I was getting better, but I was still not where I was before. And I was afraid and I was angry and I was, sad. And so I just remember at one point, but almost being suicidal. Like I'm never going to get back what I had. I can't live like this because my family, my faith, my job, my brain, my activity, that was so important. And so much of that was altered. And I remember one day when it was about 6 months after my event, I had actually gone back, 6 or 8 months, I'd actually gone back to work, very limited basis. I was driving home, was on the freeway, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm not the same. I don't know if I'll ever get this back. If I just drove into this embankment, it'd be all over because it's just too hard. And then something just hit me and I thought, wow, look at all the people who work to get you back. Look at all the people who spend time, energy, their life. And I just, at that moment, and I will tell you, people who I've interviewed hundreds of people, and they can tell you in their story that moment where they said, I hate everything, that I don't like this, but in some weird way, I'm going to move forward. I don't exactly know how I'm going to pull it off, but I'm going to move forward. And that, in fact, is stage 2 of MetaHab. It's the turning point. It's the choice. I'm making a choice to move forward. And then, you really, but it's just, it's tough. And, I cannot tell you anything about how exactly to do that, but that is a critical, important choice. And once people do that, then you just like ratchet it up. Well, what do you want to do? How do you want to do this? And you start getting family and friends and colleagues and everybody into, well, try this, try that, do this. And you get it's a really busy time because, but it's, it's a kind of a dark place, and to pull out of that is tough.
Yeah, now I want to get in. I think the listeners are able to capture how much of a miracle it is that we're having this conversation. To be honest, it really is. I looked at 141 meta-analysis worldwide studies on CPR survivors, outside like you in the field. 29% of them had ROSC, return of spontaneous circulation. 22% chance of survival to the hospital. 8.8% chance of hospital discharge. And so that's 92% aren't leaving the hospital. 7.7% 1-year survival rate. And you're at what, 31 years now, doing
31 years,
and still getting after it and challenging yourself. And I can't imagine the emotions of just going back into that time. And I greatly appreciate you taking your pain, bathing in it, and say, you know what, I got to do something with this, and I got to help people. And so I'm so excited. I know your staff I haven't read your book, but there's one coming, and I can't wait to get it and read it, because I have a really good friend who suffered a stroke here in Vacaville, and he's doing better, but he still has some of that pain that you're talking about. And I think he's still looking for that turning point, and I guess if you had one piece of advice for someone that's still a little bit frustrated with how life has changed, what would you tell that person to try and inspire, give them hope, or what advice would you give to somebody that's in that space?
That's a tough one, because what motivates one person is not the same for another person. But what I tell people is that there are lessons that you are learning in that space. And although I wish I could take the pain away, I cannot. And I need you to be there for a little bit, because you're learning a lot. But I can't leave you there. I have to come back and get you. And I do this a lot with veterans, and I need to come back and get you because we need to move forward. And so at that point, what I would say in terms of, instilling hope, and what are the things that you talk about in terms of the ingredients, I will say to them, here are some things that people who have moved forward did.
I like that.
Have you thought about, and I kind of give them a list, and it's in my book, and on my website and all that, you kind of look at that and say, what is it that you have here that helps you move forward? The other thing that I tell them to do is, don't look so far ahead. Okay. When I started coming back, I was not looking at getting my master's or going for, oh, I know when I come back from this, I'm going to get a master's and go for a doctorate. No, I was just like, I need to get through tomorrow. And so I say to them too, don't look too far ahead. Focus on the now. What do you need to do to get you through today? And then get you and start looking at tomorrow. So short steps. And then at the end of the week, for example, you look back and go, what did you do this week that you didn't do last week? Well, there you go. You start getting some steps, some strategies. And the big thing is too, always focus on, like you talked about, what you can do. And don't, I always love it when people, well, I'm going to learn how to do this and I'm going to learn how to do that. And I'm going to learn. I go, why? Why are you learning new things? You've already done things in your life. What have you done in the past that has moved you through? Well, that worked, right? Go back and do that again. And so those kinds of things, just reminding people that you may not have gone through this before, but you've gone through something before that you mastered. Go back and look at that. Second thing, don't look too far in advance. Just go day to day to day and enjoy the process. And the third thing is that if you are stuck, get some extra help. There are times I got therapy. I went to a therapist. This was like bigger than anything I'd ever dealt with in my past. And I needed that little extra help of somebody to help me, not my family, because they're going through their own things too, right? I needed to have somebody, and I, picked the right therapist person because I said, I want to focus on understanding this and moving forward. And so if you are stuck, get some extra help.
Wow, that is great stuff. I just wanted to say, first of all, man, you make me proud to be a fellow Don, first and foremost. But and one of the things you said that I kind of caught on to was how you didn't go to college for monetary reasons. And you're a nurse, you're there to help others, serve others. And in your darkest hour, when you're driving on the freeway, I love the fact that you weren't thinking about yourself, but everyone that got you to the point where you were. And I think that's awesome. I think something to take out of all that is it's to serve others. It's for the others. It's not always about you. And I think today's generation, my kids especially included, I think that's a great lesson for everyone.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because one of the things when I was thinking about our conversation, we were thinking about the important ingredients. Well, one of the things that I talk about in my book is, I looked at what you could call markers or facilitating conditions, things that I saw when I did my original research and spoke to both males and females in a variety of different traumas that they went through. I could see not only the stages that they had gone through, that they did this and then they did this and then they did this, but also I saw markers or facilitating conditions. And there are several of them, but in my book, I talk about the 3 indicators. And if you want to say the ingredients for that I see in every person's story who has moved forward, not overnight, but over time, are this notion of hope. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this sliver of hope that they're holding on to, that I will get a life. They also have this notion of gratitude. I don't like what happened, but I am grateful for family, friends, whatever. And the third thing, I always see these 3 things: hope, gratitude, and purpose. They found a way to serve. In the midst of their situation, they have found a way to give back. And you ask people, just tell me your story, tell me your story. And as they're telling you, you go, bingo, bingo, bingo. You see that. So finding that sense of giving back, finding a purpose to serve is key. And it may be complete, you look at this and it may not even be the same thing that you were there to do. A lot of times, when people experience, post-traumatic growth, they come back and maybe that door was shut and they grieve that. You have to grieve that door that's shut. But over time they go, oh, but you know what? I always really wanted to be a basketball coach. And I'm going to do that. And so some things that get shut down open up space for you to explore some things that you always wanted to do, or I never thought I could do that, but I think I want to do this. So again, this is not the kind of thing that happens right away. This happens over time, and people go through, again, the stages of MetaHab. So, MetaHab or Metahabilitation is a word that I coined because I'm into words, and I don't like the word rehab or rehabilitation. Because if you look up the definition, it's just like getting back to baseline, like getting back to where you were. Yeah, no. People blow way past that. People go way past that. So I was just chatting around. I kept thinking about that. And I was with some colleagues one time and we were throwing around some ideas. And one of them said, well, what about meta? Like in Greek, Latin means to go, to push past, to go beyond. I went, it. So I took meta and habilitation. Metahabilitation is to move beyond, to push past. People do it all the time. I'm not special. People do it all the time. People have way better stories than I do. But so that, and then when I did my doctoral research, I was so focused on, man, I just kept seeing people do this as I came back and understood more about my comeback. And then I started seeing patients or reading books or doing things. I went, man, people do this all the time. I see this all the time. And so I wanted to study that. There was things I didn't know about it, and I wanted to study it more. So I went back to get my doctorate, and I had the fabulous doctoral advisor, dissertation chair. And I said, I want to know why people do this. And he said, well, you kind of want to know why, but you really want to know how. So how did they make that pizza, right? How did they make that dough? And so he said, just listen to their story. So I did. And I interviewed 6 people, like I said, both males and females, spinal cord injury, cancer, other traumas, all that. And I just listened to their stories and read them over and over again. And I went, you know what? They didn't do this in a haphazard way. There's a pattern here. And so a colleague of mine said, yeah, there's like stages. I said, that's it. That's it. And so I could identify what I call 6 stages of MetaHab. And that's in my first book. And then I just moved more into my second book. How do you really move through those stages? What do they mean? When I work with people, I never stage somebody. I let them stage themselves. I give them the information. I'll say, read through this. Where do you think you're at? What do you think you need to do to move to the next stage? I mean, you give ideas and things, but yeah. So it's very powerful to do that.
I love, and thank you for sharing the process of how you created MetaHab. And I love the name, especially after hearing it come out of your mouth, and how it was created with your colleagues, and then how you were sitting and bathing in search of, and as soon as you heard it, boom, that's it. and learning how to just wait and listen is just key, because it will be provided. It was inside you already. You just needed a little bit of a nudge, just needed to hear it. But it was already there, and everybody has that gift and that magic. And man, I loved hearing that, and I know that's going to resonate with people listening in. And just a couple more things. I don't want to be respectful of your time, but this is something I believe in your book that I got from your site. To witness the resilience, courage, and grace in which people move forward after significant and troubling events. That amazement never leaves me. I love that, and I'm getting goosebumps. And thank you for those thoughts and for instilling that in yourself and everybody that comes in contact with you. And I'm going to throw you for a curveball real quick. But speaking of amazement, and I don't want to misspeak, but you are a USFer, but we got to give your husband some love. We haven't even talked about him. He's gone through all this stuff with you.
Yes.
That's allowed him to sit at the table, and you can hopefully score some points. Maybe he makes dinner or something for you for getting him on the show. But get him some love.
Yes, definitely. And, I think about that. Luckily we have 6 grandchildren now and everything. And we look back on how things could have been, right? And I think about, what was that like for him to pull his wife out of the pool, to see all that going on, our children there, and he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone with these 3 children, and how his courage of coming back and guiding me and supporting me in all of this. And and the other thing too, that he's got a very good sense of humor. He's a very funny guy. And I think there is some humorous things in the midst of all, there are some humors, right? There's some funny things that happen, and he would get me to laugh at things, and he would get me to move forward. And I think of the outstanding courage and the belief that he had in me was clear, because he never said, I don't want you to do that. He would say, that scares me. Can we do something? And so I would do something like go to cardiac rehab or work with my cardiologist, or do as I worked back into things. And he was always very positive about that. But man, it was a tough go for him. And I always tell people too, I think it's almost more difficult sometimes for the people on the outskirts, because there's a lot of attention on me, and a lot of people were focused on me and what to do. And after that, and after I looked at secondary and vicarious trauma, I always now ask people, how are you doing? And then I always ask the person next to them, how are you doing? What do you need? What can we do to support you? So that was huge. Yeah.
No, I love how you did that. And obviously that's your expertise. I remember, I worked for 12 years at UC Davis in the trauma ICU, taking care of people shot, stabbed, really bad car accidents. And that just takes me back to being at the bedside, and the patients were so sick, they were out, and obviously I was taking care of them, but more so taking care of the family and making sure they were some self-care and taking time to not be at the bedside 24/7, knowing that if their loved one were to survive, they're going to need you at full strength to start to MetaHab. And so, I appreciate you sharing that. A couple last things. Mm-hmm. What is one question? Like, come on, Jeff, you're a USFer. You should be really good at knowing I want to share this. What's the one thing that this big dummy hasn't asked you? You're like, hey, I need to let the listeners know about this. Is there anything we haven't hit yet?
No, I think you've done like a fantastic job of all of this. I think the one thing that I want people to know more than anything, And when I talk to my students, for example, and this is kind of the pitch I gave to the publisher when I did the book, is the notion of, you got this. And I'll talk to students of mine who are struggling or whatever, we'll meet, and I will just say to them, tell me your story. Don't tell me what's good, just tell me your story. So as they'll tell me their story and I see things that they've gone through and they've done well, and I go, look at me. You got this. You got this. So I think that's, for me, the biggest important thing, is because if we look at our evolutionary trail and everything, we have in us the ability to do all of this. And but it comes out, and it comes at its best when we challenge ourselves or life challenges us. So you got this. If you need, there are times you're going to need help with this, ask for and accept that help, and then continue to just look at what it is you learned and what you can give as a result of what you went through.
I love it, man. What a great episode. Pashito, you got any closing comments to get us out? This has been a treat for me. I've really been touched by your story, the work that you do, and I'm excited that we're going to spend some time doing something at Sac State that we'll talk about off this show. But Pashito, get us out of here.
Like I said, I'm just proud, and I'm just amazed. I'm amazed all that you went through, and I love the MetaHab. I love that word, because I watch with the kids. I watch those TV shows, Avengers or whatever they are, X-Men. They got metahumans. You know, they go above and beyond based on. I love that. I think that's awesome, and thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it.
So if you can, so as we go at it, this is the work that I do. So the three things that I focus on are, I do speaking engagements, I do consulting with people, and I do program development. So if I can be of service and help to a variety of organizations or whatever, I really appreciate you spreading the word, so that to help me spread the word. So that'd be great.
Definitely. And again, you can find her website, drjmf.com. Let me say that again, www.drjmf.com, and her email, jmf@metahab.com, metahab.com. It has been our pleasure to have Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn on this episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. And I loved how you were dropping so many ingredients. You and I, we don't do burgers and stuff, but we're going to get down on some pizza. I'm going to bring up the truck to Sac State, and we're going to make it happen with the nursing students there and drop some C4.
Awesome. Awesome. For sure.
Listen,
keep connected.
For tuning in. It's great having you. And my Pasho, what do we got to say to get us out? Boom. That just happened. Thank you.